Alright, so I just finished up my next Twitter poll. What are the results this time? Well, that's surprising. You'd expect with this many followers, most not even paying attention to your regular tweets, that no one would give a shit about your new poll. Well, thanks guys. I actually want to review this TV movie for two reasons. For one, just to get my thoughts on it out of the way, but also to promote a much better and recent episode of the show that uses music in a much better way. More on that later. I've been a huge fan of SpongeBob since I was really freaking young. Bullshit. And as a young adult, I can now appreciate the work that went into making the first 3 seasons so damn good, even more so than when I was a kid. I also really want to talk about A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie sometime, as I find the fact that the cover art is mostly just stolen assets and how when contacted, the producer of the film didn't even comment on the existence of the original film really sketchy. It makes me think that the film wasn't even produced to begin with. Plus, Nickelodeon could do the concept 100 times better if that Nicktoons movie is real. But that's for another day. For today, I'm gonna briefly talk about Atlantis SquarePantis because there's not much I can add to what's already been said. I actually watched the special right when it first premiered. Yes, the very first airing without any of the patchy segments, so I'm not going to talk about them. For SpongeBob's side of the story, he and Patrick are blowing bubbles in Jellyfish Field until they come across half of an amulet in a cave while bubble traveling. They go to the local museum only to find Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and eventually Sandy. Squidward realizes that SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally found the second half of the Atlantean amulet. When the halves are connected once more, they launch a bus able to bring our heroes to Atlantis. They soon find out that the bus runs on singing, and yeah, this is a musical. Simply put, the songs here aren't terrible, they're just not very memorable. Also, Plankton's here. For some reason. He really doesn't need to be in this story. That's another praise I can give to recent SpongeBob episodes. They mostly avoid the sin of having Plankton appear where there's no reason to have him in that story. Why is he here if the plot doesn't involve the Krabby Patty secret formula at all? So the gang get to Atlantis and meet up with Lord Royal Highness, voiced by David Bowie. That's another problem modern SpongeBob episodes tend to have. Misplaced celebrity cameos. You know how I said this is a musical? Well, that seems like the perfect opportunity to utilize David Bowie, a musician, but guess what? He doesn't get a single musical number. Anyways, with Lord Royal Highness's help, they dick around a bit in Atlantis, each main character besides SpongeBob and Patrick getting at least one musical number, until they come across the world's oldest bubble. After idolizing it for a bit, Patrick takes a photo and the bubble pops, but at dinner later that night, Lord Royal Highness reveals that it wasn't even the actual bubble, just the prop, and takes out the actual bubble. After taking another photo, because as we all know, Patrick's personality is widely flanderized in the later seasons, Royal Highness is pissed and sends his guards after our heroes. Then something about an ice cream cannon stops them, Plankton becomes the new bubble for some reason, still great use of the character guys, and the rest of the main cast flies off before negative continuity sets in and Plankton is back at the chum bucket. Can you tell I don't like this special? And even with that said, this isn't even the worst thing ever. I know he's a very polarizing critic, but as Mr. Enter put it, there's a lot worse you can do than SpongeBob. Even modern SpongeBob. Still, for SpongeBob standards, it's a pretty miserable special. The music's rather forgettable, the story and humor are dull, it's just not a very entertaining special. Personally, I think Truth or Square is worse just for the fact that it fails as an anniversary special, but that's not to say either of these TV movies are good. It's just one of those specials where I feel it's bad, but there's not much to talk about regarding it. Oh, and remember what I said about there being a newer episode of SpongeBob that uses music in a much better way than in this special? Yeah, that episode just so happens to be Sharks vs. Pods, an episode guest starring the Fonz himself, Henry Winkler, alongside a few other guests as his Shark Gang. While not a musical, it does have a pretty unique jazzy soundtrack to help fit the mood. I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't seen it, but it's definitely worth a watch in my book. Best of all, it's an 11-minute episode, so it doesn't waste your time like an hour-long TV movie does. But in closing, Atlantis SquarePantis well, it's a bad SpongeBob TV movie and it exists. Bye!